Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a good evening. We have a severe thunderstorm watch here, so it'll be funny if we hear a big lightning and thunder while we're in stream. So, anyways, I'm hoping you all had a really good week. Greetings. Yes, the Great Zucchini Adventure does continue, Banks, 100%. So yes, we will post a video. Again, I will post a video soon. I don't know when. I have to work on it, maybe this weekend, where I will put together the montage of everything I've baked with the zucchini, as well as the guillotining and the assassination of that zucchini from my backyard from last week. So in case you missed it, guys, big zucchini came out of my yard. It was pretty intense. Hello, Joad White. Hello. 10 Dragon. So hello, everyone. I hope you are doing well. Captain Nobody, hello. So, okay, if you're joining this after the live stream, just skip 5 minutes ahead. That's when I'm going to start the presentation about Nuremberg. And I'm going to go over a little bit of that today and try to explain why I think Nuremberg 2.0 is coming. So just march it up to the 5-minute mark. I'm going to make sure I watch my... Yeah, so I'm going to start at the 5-minute mark, roughly, talking about the Nuremberg trial, and we're going to get into the Nuremberg Code, and then we're going to talk about how a lot of the things that I'm seeing today could potentially become, in about 10 years, another massive one of those Nuremberg trials that we saw in the 40s. So, hello, Alex Jones. And Binks, are you crying about the zucchini because I killed it? Binks is upset about the zucchini. Hello, Trampoline. I recognize you, Charlotte. How are you? Yes, welcome to the live stream, Charlotte. Not sure if you saw one before. Christian Delorme, bonjour. Bonjour, Mélanie. Mike L, hello. Okay, so before starting, we need to kill 5 minutes or 4 minutes now before we get into the subject. So I figured we would go straight into my favorite search, which is looking at what was published relating to the unvaccinated this week. So let's get right into that. So here we go. Here's my little search for unvaccinated. And we can see a few reports in there this week. So this is one that I found was very, very funny, because Edmonton Journal says, are unvaccinated Albertans expendable? And I had to Google that because I'm like, what is it? Doesn't expendable mean like you can discard them? So, and indeed, it means that. So I figured we'd take a quick look at that. It's been 10 hours ago that this came out. I have not read this yet, but yeah, let's check it out. What do they mean? In light of the imminent end to Alberta's COVID measures, including most testing, contact tracing, and remarkably mandated isolation, my husband and I will not be going to restaurants, stores, or football games. We will be in self-imposed lockdown. Okay, that's fair. It's your choice, right? We did the responsible thing, took precautions, got vaccinated, all in the hopes of being able to see our newly arrived grandchildren and protect our neighbors. So I get on the plane in Ontario to finally see those new grandkids. I guess it's okay that the person next seat has active COVID. But I guess Premier Kenney, they are expendable. Expendable. Is that the title here? Expendable. Yeah. I guess they are expendable along with Alberta's kids, the uncompromised, immunocompromised, and yes, that uninformed, unvaccinated population in Alberta. Shame on you. Oh my gosh, these people that want the forced vaccination are just unbelievable. So yeah, I don't know what to me, we just read this together. I don't even understand what they're trying to say, but the clear message, the tone of the message is bad, unvaccinated, you ruined my life. So there's going to be a few more of those articles coming out, but it's getting really desperate. You can sense the desperation in this whole thing. I don't know if you guys can hear, my dogs are walking all over the floor here and they're making so much noise. I apologize if it's going click, 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 click all over. But anyways, okay, so we'll go through a few more. And Okay, so have your say, should Ontario impose new restrictions to keep unvaccinated people out of high-risk settings? So this one is, I think I saw this one before, you have to check something in here. It gives you a couple of survey where you can, yeah, here we go. Have your say. So this gives you the opportunity to answer here. So of course, it doesn't really matter what you answer because the narrative is already set. So even if you answer this and the overwhelming population will say, none of the above, they still will go along with the narrative. But you'll notice that none of the options here are I'm opposed to the vaccine or I'm questioning the rollout of the vaccine. It's all it's I'm not sure. So makes it really on the side of what is being pushed out right now. So another little piece of propaganda. Even when they give you options, they don't really give you options. You can't answer truthfully. So yeah, another one here. And here we go with the increase. So Ontario, where I am, is having a huge uptake. Like the Delta variant is a big thing, and I believe the Delta variant is actually here. Like, why not? Of course, the viruses mutate. So I'm not disbelieving that, but I'm just getting a little, well, not getting annoyed. I've been annoyed for a while, but with all of the different ways they have to bash people who decide not to do this. So of course they're blaming people in here. Where are the new cases, right? So they're in Toronto. Peel region has a bunch. York region has a bunch. Waterloo a little bit here. So we're in stage 3 in Ontario, and they're saying that they're going to lift all the restrictions once 80% have had 1 dose and 75% have had 2 doses. Now, that's not true. They're not going to lift it. The new lockdowns will be around climate change, by the way. Have you seen that? The little resurgence in the climate change narrative coming up in the last week. I think you must have noticed if you look at my channel. I'm pretty sure that you look at this kind of channel, and a lot of people have been noticing that, even if you just look in your news feed. Now, the global, global, what is it? Warming, I don't even know. Global warming was from the early 2000s, right? Climate change, the climate change is back. So that's going to be potentially the new lockdown pretense. So anyways, okay. So let me see the time here, because I can't lie about that 5-minute intro before getting into the Nuremberg, or else the people who didn't catch the live are going to get really pissed and tell me all about it in the comments. So I am going to go right into the Nuremberg presentation that I have prepared for you. Just give me a second to get that all ready and set up, and catch up with the chat a little bit while I'm setting it up. Scribbler Squire, hello. Hey, Faye. Well, Faye's here, so we can now start, right? Welcome, Faye. Hope you're doing well. Okay, so let's get right into this. So the Nuremberg Code. So today I have for you a presentation about the Nuremberg Code. And I've been thinking about this a lot, and I'm trying to determine, is this some kind of a tool that we could use in the fight that we're facing when it comes to the mandatory injections that we're seeing now? So Quebec, it's not mandatory, but if you want to participate in society, it has become. So they don't say you have to, but they say if you don't, you can't go to bars, cinemas, whatever, you can't participate. Same thing over in New York. So Quebec and New York are the 2 North American test grounds for this new mandate. And if it's successful, it could very well escalate to the actual, you are forced to take this vaccination no matter what. So I've been trying to figure out for the last year, can this code, the Nuremberg Code, help us at all in this? And this is what we are going to look at today. So I'm just trying to get my window here open a little bit more. Just one sec here, guys. Okay, there we go. Okay, perfect. So here, what we're going to look at, the actual trials. So the Nuremberg trials were critically important if we want to understand how the code came about. Then we're going to look at the actual code. So you've seen a lot of people saying, oh my gosh, Nuremberg codes are protecting us. Well, we're going to check it out to see, is that really true? And also, there's been a lot of the powers that be in the Google and Facebook world that have been going out in force saying it's a myth that it's a violation of the Nuremberg Code, what is happening right now. It's a myth, so don't believe it. So we'll check that out to see as well, is that true? And then is this a tool that we can use? Okay. So here's the Nuremberg Code, introduced in August 1947. And it was the outcome of the doctor's trial. So we'll cover the doctor's trial as well today. But the Nuremberg Code, it's very important to understand it's not a law. People use that interchangeably. If you say Nuremberg law, the Nuremberg laws were what were applied in the 30s against the Jewish people. I think it was 1938. Those were the Nuremberg laws, which was the discrimination against Jews on a legal scale. And maybe it was in 33. I don't even remember. But so it's not a law. The code is not a law. It's never been written into law into any jurisdiction in the world. So it's just a mistake if you hear people say law. It's a code. And it came out of the doctor's trial, which was the kind of the second trial that happened there. So at the bottom of each slide, you see that I put the source in here in case anybody's wondering where I'm getting the information from. Everything is here at the bottom of the screen. So the influence, you can hear my kids in the background, the influence on the human rights, right, and especially on medical ethics is profound. It's a huge transformation of that whole discipline. So not trying to minimize the code by saying it's just a code, because it's a very critically important code. And from that, there has been some laws created. So for example, there's international law, Article 7 of the United Nations, that talks about informed consent. And it specifically points back to the Nuremberg Code. And there's ethical guidelines, biomedical research, all of that have adopted these guidelines within their organizations. So places like the World Health Organization, they have all adopted, the medical sciences branch has adopted the principles from this code. Okay, so let's kick it off right into the Nuremberg trials. Hey, Tassaniko and Tyler, I see you guys there, welcome. Nuremberg trials, here's a little map of the courtroom. And can you guys, I hope you guys can see this. I didn't even check. Yeah, I think you can. Okay. My face is in the middle. My face is where the movie camera is down here. So if you look down here, where movie camera was here, you can see the prosecutor's tables up here. So we'll go through who was there. But the elevator is really interesting how this was done. So, okay, let me divert a little bit and talk about why Nuremberg was picked. So every city was bombed in Europe. It was pretty disastrous. Nothing was really left in place from the infrastructure perspective. So when the Americans decided to do this trial, they were looking for a spot to go. So Nuremberg did have a significance in the sense that the Nuremberg laws, the anti-Jewish laws came from there. And it was also where the Nazi party would always go and have their annual parades and all that stuff. So it was kind of significant to have it there. But also it happened that the Nuremberg, what was it called? The civic center, whatever, the Palais de Justice. I don't even know how to say that in English. If somebody knows, please put it in the chat. But Palais de Justice was relatively unbombed, and the repairs were minimum. So they thought they could get through everything fast and repair it in time for the trials. And fun fact, there was a jail attached to it, and there was enough buildings around it to accommodate all the people who would come in, and like all the researchers, all of the journalists, all of the cameramen, all of the people who were going to be looking and involved in this trial in any way. So they picked Nuremberg, and that's how it ended up being there. But if you look here, there's an elevator right around here. And it pops the defendants, so the bad Nazis, right into this box here, which is where they would go and sit. So another fun fact, these guys, the Nazis, they were all in the jails around the Palais de Justice. and they were unable to talk to each other. They were refrained. You were not allowed to talk to other Nazis because they didn't want, you know, them to start exchanging things on how they can take their defense to the next level or whatever, right? So there was a ban on the Nazis talking to each other. So they were isolated the whole day. They would be brought up through that elevator to that little box where they would sit all day, go through the trials, and then be brought back down to their cells. But on the first few days of the trial, despite all of the preparations, everything that they had planned out super well, they actually didn't think about lunchtime. So these guys are in there and they're like, oh man, we forgot about lunch. We don't have a plan for these guys for lunch. So they ended up having to eat in that box for a couple of days until they figured out a plan. But the problem was now they were able to talk to each other. So there are some theories out there that say maybe that had an impact on some of the acquittals. Anyways, it's neither here nor there. It's just a fun fact that I'm throwing at you guys. So at the trials they started, it took them 1.5 days to read out all of the indictments. It was very long, and there was a couple of countries that were there. So US was the one in charge of this. There was France was there. I don't even know why France was there, to be honest. Like, the French completely loved the Nazis when they showed up, and they were like, oh yeah, take our country and take our women, and we're going to be Nazis with you guys. There was French resistance, I get it, but for the most part, French accepted the Nazis. So why they were there for the Nazi trials, beyond me, I don't get it. UK was there, of course. Winston Churchill sent his delegates, and the USSR. And again, why the USSR is there? It's even worse than why France is there. USSR doing far worse things than the Nazis, by the way, or at least just as bad, but probably even worse. Those guys were there judging the Nazis. So it's kind of a ridiculous concept in itself from a philosophical, ethical, moral perspective to have the USSR judge the Nazis. But anyways, so those four were there. You can see the four tables right here. The prosecutor tables here, French, American, British, and Soviet. And they delegated they brought a bunch of judges, prosecutors, and all that. So they were trying the war criminals. So that was the first trial. So the first one, so this is Robert Jackson. He's a good guy. He was the main guy who went after the Nazis in that first trial. So the first trial was called the International Military Tribunal, and that was the one that started November 20th all the way to 45 till October 46. And this is where the opening statement was long, the indictments were long. The British went up there and made it kind of like an academia, like they thought it was their university and they were giving lectures. It was kind of funny. So anyways, yeah, this was how it all started. That was the very first trial in there, and it was the biggest one. So when you hear about the Nuremberg trial, it's most likely people are talking about that one. There's a couple movies made about it. It was pretty big. And another fun fact for you guys about the translation, it was the first time in history that they were able to have some kind of, it wasn't software, but they had a system to be able to translate to four languages very quickly. So the Germans would speak German, and then they would translate it out to French, English, and Russian. And they were able to do that very quickly so that the proceedings of the trial could go fast. And it was this new technology they had. I can't remember what it was, but had they not had it, it would have been like 20 years of trials. So anyways, there we go. So what were the charges at this first big trial? Well, crimes against peace, that was one. War crimes, crimes against humanity, and conspiracy. And the conspiracy one, I'm really glad that they did that conspiracy one. They meant it in the sense of the Nazis got together and conspired to do genocide. They conspired to do the final solution against the Jews. They conspired to do war with Poland, all of those kinds of things that came under the conspiracy. And I'm glad that was thrown in for the major trial, because had it not been, this is where, had these Nazis not conspired that way and led their population, led just the normal Germans probably would have never gotten along with this, right? but it was because of everything, the propaganda partnered up with that conspiracy, is what made it so that so many normal, very smart German people went along with this whole Nazi ideology. And this is why I'm thinking, if we were to ever have some kind of a Nuremberg 2.0, with our current context, if you guys know what I mean, you're going to have to read between the lines here because I have to be so careful how I position everything. But assume we have Nuremberg 2.0, I do believe that one of the crimes that would be brought up at that point will be conspiracy crime. You guys know why I'm saying that. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see about that. Okay, so before we look at the doctor's trial, which is, there's 12 trials after this one. And before we look at the doctors, which is going to lead us to the Nuremberg Code, I wanted to take a look at just quickly 2 other kinds of trials that there were, just to give you an example of those 12 other trials, like the 13 total. What kind of things were they doing, right? So case number 4, the Pole case. This is Pole himself with the earphones here. And you can see here the list of defendants. It's probably a bit hard for you guys to see. And this, so this guy, the Pole case, it dealt with the crimes of the SS. So if I go back really quickly to this slide here, at the International Military Tribunal, they determined that the SS was a criminal organization. So from that, they were able to go over to this case and say, well, because you were a criminal organization, we can now go after the SS as the criminal organization. And so that's what they did. They went after that. So this is what they did. This trial started in 1947, March 10th. And this was after the doctor's trial. So case number 4, doctor's trial, was case number 1. Here's another one, the Einsatzgruppen. So this was a very disturbing trial for so many of the people in the courtroom. And then once it got out and was published, a lot of the people had they were disturbed by this one. I'm going to read for you here, just in case you are just audio only on this video. I put here a quote from the opening statement from the prosecution of that trial. And it says, "We shall establish beyond the realm of doubt facts which before the dark decade of the Third Reich would have seemed incredible." And I thought that was a very, very solid statement, and especially that it's applicable today. Because if you think about today, the way our world is, if you were to tell somebody all the things that we have to undergo today, but you would told them 2 years ago, they wouldn't have believed us. So you can see here, we can say, we shall establish beyond the realm of doubt facts which before the 2 years of the COVID-19 period would have seemed incredible. You can see how it's a direct parallel. There are some things, there are circumstances that happen that make unbelievable things happen, things that you could never have thought would actually be a reality. This is applicable into many places in history, but I thought it was a very good one here. So, okay, so let's go over the Einsatzgruppen a little bit. So they were a special SS division. They were a group, they were established with a specific goal of the massacre of Jews. So what was so disturbing about this group is that they weren't there for military reasons. Like, it wasn't like a army thing, like we need a group to go and fight soldiers. Those were the guys who were going, you think these are the van guys. Think about them as the van guys. You know, the guys they were driving around with the trucks, and they would put 10, 12 Jews at the back of the truck and put the initials like Long B, and they would kill them that way. This was them. They did that. And they would also be responsible for going to cities and villages in occupied lands. So when the Nazis would take over Poland, for example, Ukraine, and you name whatever country you want, wherever the Nazis went, they would send the Einsatz team over to the villages to round up the Jews. And they would say, okay, we're just going to bring you somewhere else. But what would happen is they would bring them to the edge of the village, of the city, whatever, where they had pre-dug trenches or dig holes, whatever. And there was another group, another Einsatz team that was there waiting to shoot them. So now these people were just led to their death. They were just shot, women, children. So anyways, men, women, children, and then buried into these massive graves. So that was these guys who did that. And that was their goal. They were created to do that. And they brought so much evidence at this trial. So, and by the way, I'm going to speak very, very briefly about the 6 million Jew thing, because I've heard it come up quite a few times. People are saying, how do they know it was 6 million? Why? Whatever. It's a lie. Well, I mean, you can believe what you want based on your evidence, but based on the evidence from the tribunal, the military tribunal here, Robert Jackson, when he showed up in Germany to start doing the research for all of this trial preparation, he met up with some, I can't remember, he was like a Jewish leader. And the Jewish leader said, we took how many Jews were alive in the world at the start of the war, and we deducted with how many Jews are alive now, and we think it's about 6 million. We think the Nazis killed 6 million. Robert Jackson, the Justice Jackson, the guy who's the going to go and conduct the council, he's going to basically prosecute all these Nazis. He goes, there's no way. I mean, I don't know if he said it that way, but I'm just trying to paraphrase. He's like, no, not possible. There's not possible that there was 6 million. And when he was actually looking at all of the evidence, he actually came back and said, oh boy, I think it is 6 million. And it's from all of these numbers taken together. So they took, how many Jews did the Einsatzgruppen kill? How many Jews died in concentration camps? How many Jews died of forced labor in other places? How many Jews were just disappeared? Like all that kind of stuff. And they actually think that 6 million is a legit number. So this is all documented. These numbers are documented within these trials documents. Half of, like a lot of them are, I got mine from Harvard University. You can go on their website and they have that. But it's all documented. So it's not like it's any kind of a number that they just, it's not a propaganda number. It actually seems to be a very legit number. So anyways, think of it what you want. But I just thought I'd throw that out there so that you know where the 6 million Jews killed came from. Okay, so these Einsatz units were really, really brutal. They also went to hospitals and asylums, and they would just kill the ill, the insane people. They called them useless eaters, and they're like, they can never serve the Third Reich, so out they go. So these guys were just absolutely. Oh. Hi, Jamie. What's up, baby? You're just getting water? Come in and say a quick hello, and you gotta go, my sweet boy.
Hello.
Okay.
Hello.
I don't even know if they could see you there. Oh my goodness. Okay, sweet boy, go get your water.
Thank you.
This is live. They can see you, but they can't answer. You need to get your water and go, okay?
They can answer in the comments.
Yeah, they can. They're probably answering in the comments right now. Okay. Sorry, guys. So anyways, so think of it what you want. You can do what you want with that 6 million. I'm just telling you that that is where it was found. It's within the documents from these trials. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to say about the Einsatz is that in this trial, the prosecutors applied the theory of individual responsibility. So this is where I was just following orders stopped working. This is where they established that the Einsatz group were aware of what they were doing. They were, okay, sweetie, can you shut the door and go back?
Hello. Bye-bye. See you later. See you on another day.
Okay, so the just following orders was killed within that trial. This is where, when you hear that nowadays, just a little bit of history for you guys, that's where it came from, where the personal responsibility was applied. They realized there's no getting around this. You guys are responsible for what you did, and you cannot use the I was following orders defense. Okay, are you depressed yet, guys? It is depressing, eh? Okay, so the case number 1, doctor's trial. So it's also known as the, what was it called again? There's another name. I think I have it on another slide. But the doctor's trial. So this was case number 1 after the International Tribunal, the International Military Tribunal. This was the first case that was launched. So they started December 9th, 1946 to August 20th, 1947. The indictments were conspiracy, same idea as the military tribunal, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and membership in a criminal organization. So the SS declared criminal. These guys were part of SS, so they decided you guys are part of a criminal organization. So that was the first of its kind. So basically, you could see this. The picture has all. These are the doctors. 23 of them. They're all sitting there, and they were accused of torture and murder and conducting medical experiments in concentration camps on the inmates there. And yeah, really not a good group of guys here. And I mean, I can read a few of these. It's really disturbing. I hope you guys are not eating. A few of the things that they've done. I'll tell you guys some of the things that they've done. The main guy, one of the main guys, was called Breckner Freising. He was a captain of medical service of the Air Force, and he was responsible for doing those air pressure experiments. So we'll see them here, the high altitude experiments. They had some freezing experiments. This is the kind of stuff they did. Buchenwald camp had I think it was the women's division, had a whole bunch. They used the women. And I was reading, so I read through a lot of the trial notes, and some of the stuff they did was horrific. So there was one girl who was talking about how she was selected with a bunch of other girls to be brought into the doctors to do experiments on. And they were doing experiments where they were trying to cut off pieces of bone and transplant it to another body, like just horrific stuff. And nerve regeneration and stuff like that. So she testified in court that they would bring that group, and one time, after a few times that they've been experimented on, they kind of had it. They didn't want to do it anymore. So they had actually gone and written a full notice to the camp commander saying, we do not want to do this anymore. And the camp commander just said, I don't care. I don't care what you do. You have no rights. So that part was a big part of the doctor's trial as well. And that fueled the doctors who were consultants on that trial. It fueled them to write the Nuremberg Code. So it's all of these things put together that fueled that. So this is what happened. And this girl said one time they tried to run away, and they tried to go and hide themselves within the other inmate population, but the Nazis got them. They went back and got them, brought them back, and just put them into the care of the doctor. So anyways, if you're interested, like, there is no horror movie that is more disturbing than the stuff that I read from the Nuremberg trials, and I think this is why the Nuremberg Code came out of it. So you can see here all the experiments on the back of this girl here. They were taking pieces of her tendons to see if they can regenerate it. So a bunch of ladies. Hold on, guys. There's too much noise in the other room. So you can see this is what she testified. They used her body to show what was done to her. There's a couple of women who testified. So, okay. This is the Beckner-Freising guy that I was telling you about. And the reason he's interesting to me specifically is, I don't know if I have that book here. I do. Okay. I was reading another book once, and it's this one here. It's called, hang on, let me just stop sharing for 1 sec so that I can show you this book. Because this is why I was so interested in this guy. Okay, so I have this other book. It's called The Nazi Next Door. And I haven't done like a review on this book yet on this channel, but this guy's boss, so this doctor here, his boss was a doctor that came to the US under Operation Paperclip, which is where some of the very high-ranking scientists from the Nazis came over under visas to America, to the USA, in order to continue their work here on American soil. So again, why there would be a trial going after the high-ranking Nazis and simultaneously bringing other ones here under Operation Paperclip is astounding to me. It's just, so you can just, it just gives me like a realistic view for when we have Nuremberg 2.0 coming up, that it'll be like Trudeau testifying against Biden for management of the COVID-19 scaredemic, right? Like, this is the kind of thing where you're like, but Trudeau did the same. Oh yeah, but don't worry about that. Like, he's got some kind of we're going to bring him in under another operation, Operation Bird or something. And then Trudeau will just get away with it. It's just going to be absolutely insane. So it really helps you frame your expectations, because the corruption is just so overwhelming on every level. So you have the weak French people who love the Nazis testifying again, judging against them now. You have the freaking Soviets, the communists, judging at the Nazis' trial. And you have Americans who took over the Nazis but prosecuted others. It's like, oh, it's so much corruption. So anyways, but I still like the USA above all. The USA. Yeah, USA is my favorite country ever in the history of the world. Okay. I see a couple more people joined. Hello. I think I saw Suzanne in there. Well, hello. I think I did, but anyways, Suzanne, big warm hello to you. Thought Drifter, I saw you in there as well. Hope you're doing well. Okay, let's get back to this. Okay, doctor's trial. This guy's boss was this guy here. He was Herman. He was prosecuted, but his boss was saved by the US. So a tale of two Nazis. So anyways, you have all the other people here. You can see there's quite a few defendants. There's 23 of them. And if you go on the site, so this is at Harvard, it's down here, it's a little bit small, but you can see the transcript for the medical cases. And actually, I'm going to read a few of them because it was really brutal. Okay, so I'm going to read a bit about the high altitude experiment. So the experiments known as high altitude or low pressure experiments were carried out at the Dachau concentration camp in 1942. According to the proof, the original proposal that such experiments can be carried out on human beings originated in the spring of 1941 with Dr. Sigmund Rascher. Rascher was at that time captain in the medical service of the German Air Force. He is also held officer in the SS. He is believed now to be dead. The origin of the idea is revealed in a letter which Warschau wrote to Himmler in May 1941, at which time the Rascher guy was taking aviation medicine at German Air Force headquarters in Munich. So they did much more than just the high altitude experiments, and they were writing to each other back and forth. So this is how the trials were able to obtain so much documentation, because the Nazis, who thought they were going to be victorious and Nazis forever kind of idea, really wrote down everything they did. They were super proud of this. This was the way they were going. So this is how we have so much evidence entered into a court of law against the Nazis. They were proud of this stuff. Okay. So over 1,200 inmates of practically every nationality were experimented upon. And this is from the trial notes, by the way. Many persons who participated in these experiments have already been tried before a general military court, and the findings that the court will be laid off before this tribunal. The malaria experiments were carried out under general supervision of Dr. Schilling, and they took Catholic priests to do that, to test on. The Ravensbrück, oh, that's the one with the women, Ravensbrück. The experiments, they did sulfanilamide drugs, bone, muscle, nerve regeneration, bone transplantation. And they were conducted on female inmates of Ravensbrück concentration camp, were perhaps the most barbaric of all. Those were the most disgusting ones. And they used to make a lot of incisions in legs and shove in different things in like wood, bullets, metal pieces, and then just to see how the muscle would regenerate, and then see if they treat it or not treat it, or try this antibiotic and that antibiotic and see how long it takes. So it was all for the goal of simulating the battle-caused infections. And what's really annoying about that one is if you wanted that scientific data, that was already largely available. So you guys know that I did, when I was doing my master's degree, I did it in history of medicine. And my thesis was on how, with the advent of the war that was progressing, the weapons became a little bit more sophisticated in terms of hurting opposite armies, but they were also bringing in new things that they had never seen, like the bullets would drag in all your clothes, pieces of metals, fragment your bones, and lodge themselves in your body, and then the infection would spread. And that was in the 1600s. And starting from then, the surgeons who were going onto the fields where the armies were battling would start to collect this evidence, learn from what they were seeing in battle, and come back and document it. So they had been documenting this exact thing, has been documented in medical history, in the annals of medical history, for 400 years before the Nazis came along and are like, yeah, we need to do this. It's like, no, you did not need to do this. There was a lot of medical evidence before that were talking about these things. You didn't need to specifically do that. So anyways, yeah, I hope nobody's eating while we're talking about this. But I have so many of these things here. But we will talk about the priest that they tested on. So let's get to that guy. This was I forgot to put his name in here on the side. This was the main guy who was prosecuting the doctors. I can't remember his name now. But anyways, this is what a good guy looks like. And here's the testimony. So this is from the father of a Catholic priest who was tested upon. This is his testimony at the trial. So, Father, do I understand you to say that you were injected with malaria in the middle of 1942? He answers, it was approximately the middle of 1942 when I was infected with malaria. And were you not asked to consent to the malaria experiment? No, I was not asked for my consent. And did you not volunteer for this experiment? No, I was taken in the manner which I have just described. Did you make any protests? In 1942, it was very difficult in the camp to lodge any protest. When I protested with this 8th injection, which I was to be given, I clearly realized that it would have the most serious consequences for me. Later on, such things could be risked, but in that year, I still think that I would have been made unable to do that, and I don't think I would have been I would have been to any avail. So this is, again, no consent. Just take the prisoners and do whatever we want to them. This was widespread in all the concentration camps. Dachau is where they did all the pilot testing things, and Ravensbrück is where they did the female inmate bone regeneration things. But it really happened all over the place. So, okay, let's move into the outcome of the doctors' trials. So, the 3 principles were the most important ones: voluntary consent, intentions that carry significance for society, and then protection of human subjects. And really, the doctor's trial is what gave birth to the starting point of the modern bioethics. Prior to this, it was pretty much only the Hippocratic Oath. There was a bunch of other ones too, but for the most part, that was the most turned to in ethics. And still to this day, we use the do no harm, that's the Hippocratic Oath. So this is what it was. So just for your entertainment, a couple of other outcomes. 7 of the doctors were acquitted. 7 were put to death by hanging, and prison for all of the rest. So several of the German doctors had actually argued in their own defense that their experiments differed little from what the Americans were doing, or even previous German ones, like under the Weimar Germany. So that really showed to the courts that there was no international law or like a statement that differentiated between what was to be considered legal human experimentation or illegal human experimentation. And this is the specific argument that worried the 2 doctors who were on the prosecution team, Dr. Andrew Ivy and Leo Alexander, the 2 American doctors who were on that team. And that's what worried them the most. So Dr. Alexander submitted on April 1947, April 17th, a memorandum to the United States Council, which outlined the 6 points of legitimate research. And that is what became the eventual Nuremberg Code. The code has 10 points. It started out with 6. So this is what it became. That's how the Nuremberg Code was born. So, okay. This is the code. I'm just going to read it really quickly so that you know what is in it. It's that the voluntary consent is essential. The results of any experiments must be for the greater good of society. Human experiments should be based on previous animal experimentation. So that just means you can't just come out of the blue and say, let's just go and test this on humans. Experiments should be conducted by avoiding physical, mental suffering and injury. No experiment should be conducted if it is believed to cause death or disability. The risks should never exceed the benefits. And adequate facilities should be used to protect subjects. Experiments should be conducted only by qualified scientists, and subjects should be able to end their participation at any time. The scientist in charge must be prepared to terminate the experiment when injury, disability, or death is likely to occur. So this is the Nuremberg Code. Again, not a law, just a code. Okay, so this is where my thought process went next. Okay, what is human experimentation then? Because if we want to apply the code today to the current situation, we have to understand, are we being experimented on? Because if we're not, does the code really apply? So when it comes to the experiment and the treatment, it's basically 2 different ways of looking at it. Experiment is where your relationship is with a researcher, a scientific researcher. And the goal of an experiment is to generate scientific information. And when you look at the other side, the treatments, your relationship when it comes to that will be with a doctor, like a healthcare provider, a nurse, a therapist, a psychiatrist, right? You're going to go and seek treatment. And the goal on that side is to focus on the patient's well-being. So the experimentation really goes for scientific knowledge. That's really it. And as a therapist, it really is the well-being of the patient. So there is the 2 things that have to kind of coexist together, because you can have experiments that end up being treatments. So let's just look at this here. The human experimentation, the role really comes down to intention. So when it comes to discussions around morality of human experimentation, the traditional move that they're going to go after is differentiate between therapeutic and non-therapeutic experiments. So from that branch of experimentation that we just saw on the previous slide, you're going to bring that down and look at it and say, is that experiment therapeutical in the end, or is it really just the goal of advancing science? So the matter is looking at the results versus helping the patient, right? So that's kind of the 2 intentions that you're looking at here. And this is when we have all of that coming together. So we have the Nuremberg Code enacted. We have the moral medical ethics of the intention, the experimentation. Are we being experimented on? Do we have consent and all of that? And then we have additional layers of codification on top of that have been built on there. So here I put the Declaration of Helsinki. This one was adopted in 1964 by this guy here. He's signing it. This is from the Declaration of Helsinki. And this details the principles for clinical research that involves human people, human test subjects, right? And it came straight out of the 1947 Nuremberg Code. That's exactly what it came from, based on the horrific experiments. And then there was a couple other ones. There was a Genova one too. But then really what happened from that is the importance of obtaining consent. So when you look at that one and you look at the USA Common Rule, in the consent, obtaining consent is the most important thing, and it's informed consent. That means you have to explain the experiment to the subject. The subject has to show the understanding of it, and then they should never be forced, bribed, coerced, threatened to lose their job, threatened to not be able to go to the movie theater. This is me adding that in, but that's essentially what these codes are all saying. So this is what all of this has brought about, and also that the subject has the right to stop at any time during this and not go along with this. So this is the informed consent, is the fine-tuning from the Nuremberg Code that came through the Helsinki and then through the Common Rule in the USA. So this is why you're now hearing a whole crap ton of stuff being discussed around informed consent. This is where it all came from, and it's an absolute right that you have that, right? So will the Nuremberg Code help us? And I put an image here. I'm sorry if you're audio only on this one and you can't see the image, but these are words I cannot say on these streams, so I must remain silent on it, but imagine it. It's what I call the jabby jab. But we need to understand, can this code help us in this, right? Are we being experimented on? Is this a clinical trial? Like, what's going on with this? So this is where I started looking into what is a clinical trial, because that's how you know if it's a human experiment, is are you in a clinical trial phase? And I've put here on the screen the standard phases of a clinical trial. And from my assessment, not being a scientist, but just being someone who can read, I put here, I think we are in phase 3 of the jab trials. Because phase 3 says a phase 3 trial gathers more information about safety and effectiveness, studying different population and different dosages, using the drug in combination with other drugs. The number of subjects usually ranges from several hundred to about 3,000 people. If the FDA agrees that the trial results are positive, it will approve the experimental drug. So we know the current jab is not FDA approved. We know that, which to me indicates that it should be in a phase 3 clinical trial. So furthermore, we have here, it's a little bit small, but I tried to blow it up here. But this is from, it rhymes with Schmeiser. That jab specifically has an estimated completion date of July 30th, 2023. This is from, so you can see the source down here, just so you don't say I'm a liar, putting out false information. This is from clinicaltrials.gov, right down here. And so that indicates to me, again, another proof that we are still in the clinical trial, experimental phase of this whole thing, because the manufacturer, producer itself is telling me until 2023. So that means, if I'm not wrong, we are test subjects, which means the code would apply to us, essentially, which would make any mandatory push of this against the code that we have internationally adopted as part of our medical bioethics, right? I don't know. I mean, again, not a doctor, not a scientist, but someone who can read. And you can see there's a whole bunch of other clinical trials in here. And actually, I don't know if I can find this one. Yes, I'm going to look up this one here. There is, I'm going to Google it. Hold on, guys. Give me a sec because you're going to want to see this. Oh, I want to show you guys the clinical trial. I just have to find it, that I came across in Ontario. Clinical trial. Just one sec. Clinical trials.gov. And I'm going to find the one about Ontario. Because there's one called Family Physicians. Country Canada. Hold on. I just stopped mid-sentence. You're like, what are you going to say? Finish. Okay. Enabling family physicians to reduce vaccine hesitancy and increase COVID-19 uptake. That is a clinical trial going on right now. I came across that accidentally when I was doing this research. So let me see if I can find it again. There's no code. Okay, so hold on. There's a search, modify search. COVID-19. Okay, perfect. Okay, I think I can find it this way. Oh, yeah, I don't think I can click on this presentation. Just one sec here. Let me see if I can click on it here. No. Oh, I should have saved that link. But okay, let me go back and show this to you guys. Oh, clinical research, eh? Okay, so here, if you guys wanted to check this one out, it says, and this is the exact name of the actual clinical trial. Study title: Enabling Family Physicians to Reduce Vaccine Hesitancy and Increase COVID-19 Uptake. It is a behavioral clinical trial, and it's around the jab. So they're not yet recruiting. It was new last week when I did this research, and it is in Cornwall, Ontario. It's the East Ontario Health Unit, Cornwall. So if they do, so this clinical trial is going to go on. They're going to figure out ways to fine tune the message, whether it's bribes or basically blackmailing family physicians. But I had said a few streams ago, they're going to go after the family physicians soon and start to gather lists of people who are not jabbed to try to push this more. And this kind of, in a sad way, proves my point. That's exactly what they're doing. They're actually doing clinical trials, psychological, behavioral ones, to see how they can fine-tune the messaging to get the unvaxxed vaxxed through family physicians. This is the world we live in. This is the world we live in, guys. So, okay, let's finish up on here. We're almost done on this one. Okay, so what can we do? Well, there is a thing in Western medical science called the right to refuse treatment. So even if we weren't in a human experiment, which I think we are, given the nature of the clinical trial, even if we weren't, assume that we're out of clinical trials, as a patient, we still have the right to refuse treatment. So to make decisions about the care the physician recommends and to have those decisions respected. A patient who has a decision-making capacity may accept or refuse any recommended medical intervention. And a jab is a medical intervention. So there is hope. There is hope. I didn't put the source on the slide there, but I have it in the notes here, which is too bad. But, you know, if what the sources say is, as long as the patient has been given all relevant information about his treatment options, they understand the risk, They understand the benefit of each option. The patient's wishes come first in Western medical science. That's just the way it is, right? The right to refuse treatment is also in our Canadian Health Advocates blog. There is a section about the right to refuse treatment. So you have a right to refuse any treatment, even if refusal might hasten your death. So people, when they use that one, they go to the cancer one. So you're diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. Your doctor says, I want you to do some chemo, and we're going to start radiation right after that. You have the right as a patient, as long as you've been explained everything. You understand chemo. You understand the potential benefits, the potential downside. You have the right to refuse chemo, even though you're going to die in 2 months if you don't try chemo. So to me, this is the same argument that would be put forward from a legal perspective for a person receiving any injection at all, any at all. You have the right to refuse a medical treatment, even if it's going to make you sick. You have the right to do that. Okay, so we're almost there, guys. In summary, I think that we do have the protection of the code, the Nuremberg Code, on our side. When people say it is a violation of the Nuremberg Codes to force injections onto people, I think that is 100% correct, based on all of my assessment and my understanding of the Nuremberg Code, of what the goal of the code is, to never mistreat human experiments again. And I think that we have all of the right to decline any form of mandatory injection, mandatory treatment. None of that should be mandatory. It shouldn't exist in this world, based on everything I've seen in the actual Nuremberg trial proceedings, in the actual code, Nuremberg Code itself, the subsequent Helsinki, everything. And lastly, the right to refuse the treatment. As a patient, I have the right, as long as I'm not considered completely insane, in which I would have I would have a power of attorney, on a medical power of attorney, from somebody else I trust. So anyways, so that was it. And just because I'm a nerd and I did a PowerPoint presentation, I put the mandatory thank you slide at the end. And I also put my email address in case anybody wants to email me complaints and tell me how I'm wrong about the 6 million Jews. Go right ahead and put that in an email. You can write a whole thing to me. But yeah, anyways, so that's the presentation, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. Let me just get out of your end slideshow. I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll catch up with the comments a little bit before I go. Oh, now I'm super depressed, eh? Oh, I hate that. But look, at least there's good news. There's good news. I think we are seeing the start of the panic, because the attacks are so crazy, and I almost want them to keep going. I'm at the point where I almost want a lockdown, like a big one, do a big one, right? Because they can't blame the small percent of the population who has not obtained the injection yet. And they're trying to push, this is how you have to think about it. The narrative is so insane that it's almost a joke. So we are now in a situation where we have a large portion of our populations have taken the injection, and yet we are in a worse situation than we were before, when this whole thing started, according to the media, because now we have to panic about the 4th wave. So we've done everything. We've done all the masks, we've done the lockdown, we've done the sanitation of hands 18 times a day to the point where people developed disgusting hands, dry hands, and had infections because of that. We have the problems with our breathing now because of the masks. We've been locked in our homes, and we've done all of that. And we've gotten as a society, a lot of people have been jabbed. And yet, even after all of that, you're telling me, you, the government, the media, the big head honchos running this show, are telling me that we're in a worse situation than before. So that tells me you have no idea what the hell you're doing at all. You don't know at all what you're doing. And you should just give up and let this whole thing run rampant and let it fix itself and let the doctors come up with a solution, which should have been done in the first place. Or you are constantly making this worse on purpose. There's the only two explanations that are possible at this point. I don't know which one it is. I really don't. But anyways, yeah. So a little bit depressing, but a little bit good at the end, because I think they're panicking so hard that they're going to start being insane dictators at this point. They're going to be just going batshit crazy on us. And that is, I think, what may awaken a few more people. And if not, look, all we have to do is try to stay true to your morals. We're going to hang in there as long as we possibly can. Hope to come out of it on the other end and go testify at Nuremberg 2.0, right? That's all we can hope for at this point. Try to keep the spirit up, because there's no point in becoming black-pilled and getting all depressed over this. We just got to try to do our best, try to keep sounding the alarm, and eventually hang in there long enough that more people wake up and we end up at Nuremberg 2.0. And these doctors that are pushing this, the health, public health people, all of the people involved in this who are knowingly pushing something, if you know something and you're still pushing it, we're coming for you. We're coming for you. And I mean that in the legal sense. I'm not meaning that as in we're going to grab some sticks. I mean, we're coming for you. So people still have a choice to make. They can still decide what side they want to go on. I just hope people come on the side that is freedom and respecting other people's body autonomy. That's what I'm hoping for. It's the only thing I can hope for. But if you're on the other side and you're pushing for lockdowns and you're doing this, we're coming for you, boy. We're coming for you. So anyways, on that fun note, I will let you all go. I will come back next week with something else. No idea yet, but the news will help me. And I will go and keep tackling my zucchini baking so that we can have a whole bunch of baked goods. But what am I going to do with them? I don't know. But anyways, thanks so much for tuning in, and I will see you all in the next one, guys. Bye.